All right, so let's do this. I picked Underdogs as a game because I think it lends itself well for some haptic feedback. So the first thing I usually do is, so if you go to Steam and you pick Underdogs, and you can go to, I increased the display a little, so hopefully you can read what I'm doing. All right, so if you go to Manage, you can go to Browse Local Files, and then you will land in the folder. I usually bookmark the folder here on my Windows Explorer because then it's easy to access and you'll need it all the time anyways. So the next thing you'll have to do is download MelonLoader and get it. You also have to download the requirements, the redistributables if needed, and the .NET 6, and then the installer. I already did, so I can just launch the installer and click on select for a Unity game. I'm already in Underdogs. If you're not, you can just copy this path from your Explorer and then paste it in here. Then you'll land there, pick the executable for Underdogs, which is this one. All right, and then click on install. So there's two types of Unity games. One is mono, which usually means that in Underdogs data there's a mono folder in here, or a managed folder usually in Underdogs data. Whereas if it's an IL2 CPP game, which is a bit more complicated to mod, there's the IL2 CPP data folder here. You'll see anyways, but the first thing you'll have to do is, if you have installed MelonLoader, if it's an IL2 CPP game, you'll have to start it once. So I usually just start this up in flat screen, no VR headset connected, because MelonLoader is doing its thing anyways. What it's doing right now is recreating the C# binaries, because IL2 CPP converts them to C++ first and then to C#, which hollows out all the functions and makes it a bit more complicated to mod, but it's still very much doable. All right, the next thing you'll need is a program called .peek. I'll just start that up right away. All right, that worked. So now we can close up Underdogs. We don't need that anymore. I already have those loaded. But what you would usually do is, in Underdogs now, if you go to MelonLoader, you have a manage directory and an IL2 CPP assemblies directory. So this is where MelonLoader will dump everything that it found and reconvert it back to C# libraries. And the easiest thing to see where all the data is stored is to sort it by size. And then you can see that this is a Unity method, so it's not really that important. But you'll see that IL2 CPP underdogs.root.dll is probably what most of the stuff will be stored in. You might find later on that you need more of these. .peek is a free program that I use. You can also use the other one's called dnspy, that is also very popular, and you can just usually drag and drop your DLL in there. And if you do that, you can already see in here that it has, well, this actually has very little in it, but the root that we found has a lot of functions and sub-functions in it. So here's the and so on. So what you would usually do, oh, Underdogs player, there you go. This might be interesting. IL2 CPP and then player micro, no, that's not the one. Combat, maybe. Let's see. So what I usually do in there later on is I search for the functions I want to hook into. So right in the top here, there's a search function. So I would, for example, now search for damage, because that's one of the things I might have to hook into. Here in the root, there's a lot of damage in here. So you can see arm damage, or shoot if you have a shooter, or fire if you have a gun that fires, something like that, or health. Those are the terms I would usually search for later on if I want to do that. All right, so next thing, let's get Visual Studio 2022 up and running. So this is the community edition, and you should also use that because it's free, and it has, the other one has some legal issues. So what you would do is, for A mono Unity game, you would have to use the class library .NET Framework. You can also search for that up here. For IL2CPP games, you need the class library. You can also search for this one here, class library. You can see here you have it, C# class library. And then we'll give it a name, Underdogs OWO. It'll store it in my default location. You can uncheck this or check this. It doesn't really matter. It's just how the folder structure in your project is going to be arranged. .NET 6 is good for IL2CPP. I said before, for mono games you need the class library .NET, which still has .NET 4.8. It's not supported in this. It's just two different kinds of projects that you have to create. But yeah, .NET 6 is good for IL2CPP games. So let's press create. And we already have our first project. Now the MelonLoader, if you look here in the Explorer, MelonLoader did not only create a bunch of directories here like mods, plugins, user data, user libs, it also in the MelonLoader file has the latest.log. I usually open this with Notepad, for example, because it's not now. It contains a lot of information. If I later want to debug something and I write it in here, there's a lot of stuff in here. But the thing you need in the very beginning are the game name and the game developer. That is so MelonLoader knows how to hook in. So open that up anyways in any editor of your choice. All right, then let's go to Underdogs here. The first thing I usually do is I rename this class to be more sensible. And Visual Studio will ask me if I want to rename the class inside the file as well. That's fine. All right. So this is the first thing. The second thing for OWO is that you need the OWO library, right? So project, go to manage NuGet packages. OWO is luckily available on NuGet. So right in the package sources here, you pick NuGet.org. And then you can search for, browse and then search for OWO. OWO, you can also see by the icon, this is the one, 5.5K downloads. Install the latest version. If you install that, yeah, apply, perfect. Hopefully this works. Yes, looks good. Okay, so that's already installed. That's the OWO library. Then the next thing we need is in my mods that I made before, I would probably do that if I was you as well. I have a bunch of files that we can just reuse. That makes things easier for now. Wow, this is stupid. All right. So for example, I have OWO Arizona Sunshine 2. There you go. The my OWO West C# file, and then I have the OWO folder as well. I'll show you in a second how we could also create that. So if you want to create a mod by yourself from scratch, you would usually use the sensation creator. There you go. Probably be the same sensation creator, and with the sensation creator you can create all the effects you want to have in your game. Takes a while to start up, apparently. There you go. So if you have something, this for example is the Beat Saber one, and you can export that in the end. Export project, and if you click on generate OWO for all sensations and then you export it somewhere, it will create this folder here, the folder content. There's an auth.auth.owo that contains everything, so you can reopen it and change things later, and then all the individual effects I made for example, in this case for Arizona Sunshine 2. This is just for demonstration now for the video, so I have something here. All right, so I also copied over this my OWO West. This makes things easier because I don't have to redo everything I once did. Now I can go to add existing item and then just add that to my project. If you go in here, you can see that this contains a bunch of stuff. The most important thing is this one here I can't use anymore because it has the wrong ID. So I'll have to change that without ID. Okay, create with all baked sensations. So what this does, if you initialize this class, it'll call register all text files and then initialize OWO. And the register all text files is a function down here. Yeah, that's not included yet, I know. That will read the files, the OWO files that we just saw from the OWO directory in mods, the subfolder mods. It will read in all those files and then concatenate them into one big string and then register this as everything that's available for connecting, for sending. All right, so there are a few things that we need to add now as dependencies. So add project reference, browse, and now you can also go to, it's already there because I just made the Behaptics one a bit earlier. So if you go to your underdogs directory and then into MelonLoader, you have managed, and you will definitely need MelonLoader. No, that's not in here. That's probably in .NET 6. Yeah, .NET 6, Zero Harmony, and MelonLoader. Those are the ones you definitely need. If you want to add those, MelonLoader and Zero Harmony. Whoop. Right, now you have some assemblies in your references. You should probably turn the copy local for both of those to no, otherwise it will copy them again to the build directory, which is not needed because it's already there in MelonLoader, so MelonLoader can already load it. And you'll probably have to add the add project reference, browse, there you go. So the IL2CPP assemblies that were just created by unhollowing, you will have to use the underdogs.root as well that we just found, or whichever one. So let's just search for, if we have I think cockpit, hit cockpit. It's not what I'm looking for. Hit cockpit, shake cockpit. That might be something interesting, right? So shake cockpit is a function that could use some haptic feedback, right? So this is an IL2CPP underdogs.root. You can already see subclass IL2CPP and then player meg shake cockpit. So you will already know that in your you will need the underdogs root library. So we'll just add that, right? Also make sure that you don't copy that local. No, if you go to here and then your properties. All right. Sounds good. We don't need that. Okay. So this should have no more errors now. Yes, because we have MelonLoader, Harmony, and OWO game. All the libraries are in the project already. Namespace, underdogs, OWO. Okay, so what I would probably do now is open an older project, for example Arizona Sunshine 2 for OWO, and just copy paste what I have there, right? Because most of the things are needed anyways. Okay, just copy what we have there. Some of that is bullshit, you'll see in a second. For example, those are for Arizona Sunshine. This two Unity engine we didn't include yet, so we don't have that yet. And then this one is obviously underdogs OWO, and we call that thing underdogs. I will tell you in a second what this means. This is 1.0 and then. So this is basically the info, what MelonLoader will show the mod as. So if this is the underdogs underdogs. So the namespace underdogs, class underdogs, OWO is what is being launched. This is the name of the mod that will appear in the log file later, and the version and the author. So that's the Melon info you need, and then Melon game, that's what game the mod should hook into. And this is exactly where we need the log file that we created. So game name underdogs, this has to be exactly the same, otherwise the mod won't load. So the game name is underdogs. That's why I copy pasted in here. And the game developer is one Hamza. So all the spaces and capitalization has to be exactly the same. That's why I'm copy pasting this. All right. My bHaptics Tatsu, this is just what the class is called because I copy pasted it from bHaptics over. Doesn't really mean anything. Okay, the next thing we can use is this right here. Means that this is building on the existing class Melon mod. That makes things easier to load then. Melon mod, right, there you go. So this is going to be a Melon mod. And then on initialize Melon is what happens at the very startup for MelonLoader. Okay, we forgot to make this variable here. So this is really just copy pasting. That's the easiest way to do this. You can still go on later and understand this yourself, what I'm doing here, but I'm using what I already have, and you can do the same. It's all open source. This is not needed. This is for finding the right direction that something's pointing in, and then we just use any of those hooks. This is a harmony hook as an example. Oh no, I don't want that. All right, let's delete all of this and then go from the top. So this is a harmony patch, which means that harmony is hooking into this function in Unity. So this doesn't exist, obviously. We can check in our .peek what this was. Using IL2CPP we should have in the very top. No, we don't yet. Using IL2CPP, because that's gonna be in front of everything. And then we have player mech shake cockpit, right? So type of player mech, and then this has to be the exact same name as the function that you're calling. And you'll have to tell it which one, because there are two different ones. Let me just peek in my bHaptics mod. Player mech, detach right, detach shake cockpit, there you go. Float and float, so that's the one. All right, type of float, type of float. So what you're telling MelonLoader is basically hook into the function il2cpp dot playermech dot shake cockpit, and it should have the parameters a float and a float. You can see that in .peek here. That's the float and float parameters for shake cockpit. I would probably close the search now, because then you can see a little closer in shake cockpit. You can also double click, but for il2cpp functions you won't see anything in here. That's all just hollowed out. For mono functions you can actually see the full function in here, because it's been completely disassembled. That's nice, because you can see what the game actually does. So for this one we can't, but shake cockpit, that's already something. And then you can see that the class, the player mech class, already has a bunch of parameters here that we can use later on, you'll see. So we have to call this somewhat useful, OWO shake cockpit. That's just the name of the class that we just create for the harmony hook. And then we say harmony postfix, which means that this class is called after the function itself has been called in Unity. And this function obviously has a player mech as the class instance, and then it also has a float parameter called Let me check. Frequency and one called amplitude. Frequency and a float that is called amplitude. If you don't need that, you can just leave them out. If you don't use those later in the function, you can leave them out. But if you need them, for example now, you can use the frequency, right? If you need any of those parameters. In this case we don't, so we'll just leave them out. Makes things easier. And then yeah, one important thing is, so we want to see if something happens in the shake cockpit, for example, then we can have an if instance, and then you can refer to the class that this is referring to. So you can read all the parameters in this class and use them. For example, if you have a has health or health manager in there, if you want to see if, for example, health has health manager dot max health, no, health monitors dot, I don't know. So if you want to, for example, start a heartbeat there, if the health is below a certain threshold or something. But that's more complicated. The easiest thing we want to do now is tag suit VR and then playback feedback. That is a function that I have just implemented here in this class that we constructed in the very beginning. Down here there are some disconnect OWO log. There's a logging that will also just write into the MelonLoader log file, which is nice to have. We'll do that. Why not? So you can see how this works. Log, and then cockpit is shaking. So this will now be written into the log file if this function is called. So playback haptic feedback, playback hit. This is one that is especially for if you have a direction that the angle is coming from, front, back, whatever. It's a bit more complicated, but for this, for recoil, I also have a function, because then you can easily have different types of recoil and don't have as much strings in your actual code. And then we have playback feedback and then the string for the feedback. So this is just the file name that we created. If you look into this one here, the file name of these is the name of the feedback. So for example, now we can say explosion. If the cockpit is shaking, we want the explosion file. So we can, the explosion effect, so we can just have playback feedback and then send them an explosion. And that's it, basically. So there are a few fine points where you can still improve this. And yeah, I'll build it for once and see if there's an error. There isn't. So what's happening now is that in this Underdogs OWO in my project, there's going to be a binary, and then, oh, I built it in debug. I want a release. That's going to be better. There's a release, .NET 6, and then there's a OWO DLL. And the OWO file is not copied. Okay. So we'll have to check. What I usually do for the Arizona Sunshine module here, for example, is that if you look into the project properties, you can get here by, yeah, we'll do that just now. In the build section, there's an events page, and then post build event. So I copy the OWO directory with all the files in it into the target dir, and then I copy the resulting DLL, so the final DLL, and the OWO DLL as well into the directory where the game lives. So I don't have to do that manually every time. It's not really that important, but it's nice to have. I currently don't know why this isn't copying the OWO file. Underdogs OWO, frameworks, packages, OWO, OWO DLL, Can I just say copy that? I can't. So I'll probably have to do that myself manually. There's probably a more elegant way for that. It's just small parts now. So there's an OWO DLL in here. I'll copy and then paste that into the underdogs mods directory. And then the build that I just got, which is the OWO DLL, I'll have to copy and paste that in here if you don't want to do it automatically. And then I usually do that because if I change something and then I compile, it should be where it is. And then the OWO directory should also be copied there, right? There you go. So this should probably already work and connect to our OWO skin. Well, let's see if it does. We should start the My OWO app later, please. I'll have to probably, otherwise it can't connect. I'll have to probably start at least the box for OWO. Oh, it's completely empty. That tells you how much I use this. All right, so we can take a look at this at the log file. So the second time this launches, the log file is not going to be as long. There you go. So because the IL2CPP generation has already finished, this is what the log file will look like. It'll, oh god, no, please not right now. Yes, of course there's an error in SteamVR because I don't have a VR headset connected. Yeah, this doesn't turn on right now. Can I just play a game? Scan game. Yeah, link later. Link device required. Please turn on. No, it doesn't. It needs some charging. It's completely dry. All right. So we'll assume that this works already. Yeah, that's how you make a mod for the OWO skin. I'm sure this helps you, hopefully in some way. How long was this now? Long. All right. Yeah, good luck doing that. I might actually finish the mod, so we have another game coming. Hey!